Hi again. What I'm doing now is the Master Pro A Tour. You would have noticed if you watched my Master Pro B last week, I managed to win that one, but I'm now up to where the big boys play. So first of all, please don't expect me to win. I usually come towards the top when I've won the odd one, but you'll see some amazing scores here. But it's a good idea to, as we run through it, you'll see some different courses from the 6th tee and also the sort of scores you're going to have to compete against if you get up to this level, if you want to be winning it. This is the sort of thing I've got to compete against. I'm just looking at the higher stat guys. So you can see that from the personal bests, I usually, if I see a load of reds and whites, then I think I'm going to have a real challenge from these guys. I think this person, again, doesn't look too bad. I usually look at how many Master Pro A's they've won. If they've never won one, there's a good chance I'm going to finish above them because I've won the odd one. This guy I've played before. I think he's won Master Pro A before. So in my competition, there's more than that. I was just picking people at random. We'll see as the week goes on who I've got to play against. So the first round, Sawgrass in from the 6th tee. With my stats 16 under is going to be the target, and no doubt, I know last week I didn't hit quite a perfect round and I still managed to win all 4 rounds. That'll not happen this week. If I don't hit perfect rounds, somebody else is going to beat me. But if you're consistent over 4 rounds, there's still a chance you can finish high. And I'm usually fairly consistent. We'll see how I do. This one, big slope back to front, so the ball stopped quite quickly. So I'm going for I think I went for a high shot here. Let's just see. I did go for a full backspin. Didn't actually notice what I selected. Again, I'm just commentating over these as I've done them on my tablet downstairs. I think I went for a full backspin shot there just because with a full shot you get an extra point. I was hoping it'd get within 5.4 yards for nice approach points, but no, didn't quite make that. But still a fairly regulation putt. You'll notice I've hit it a little bit under, or quite a way under actually, and I would have adjusted the line accordingly. As I've said before, if you've watched my other videos, for the uphill putts, it's worth getting in the habit of doing that, and you'll avoid the rollover putts. Wouldn't often roll over on this hole anyway. These greens aren't severe like you'll see at the other courses, such as Safari, Rolling Hills, Sands to a certain extent. So on to the second, which is drivable with a fade. From the other tees, you can kind of either play a sky shot or you can hit a straight shot if the wind's left to right, and it'll bring it in. The contours of the green, you can see it slopes slightly left to right. It'll bring a straight shot in if you can get it round, but with that wind especially, I'm not going to be able to hit a straight shot in any wind. I don't think I would. So I'm going for basically a full fade. From previous practice, I know that this isn't going to go off the back of the green. As long as I miss the bunker, which I do, it's going to roll on towards the pin, which is right at the back of the green. A little bit of time on the practice fields meant I was very confident about that shot. I knew it was going to go somewhere in that vicinity. The only thing was just making sure I avoided any obstacles on the way. Slight downhill putt this one. Now these downhill putts immediately become more difficult and you need to be more accurate. If you miss the line by a certain amount, as in the power gauge line, you're even by quite a small amount. It doesn't make so much difference. This isn't a severely downhill shot, but you'll notice I hit it a bit harder and kind of adjusted. I probably hit it a bit harder than I meant to there actually, and it went in the left hand side of the hole. For an uphill putt, the difference wouldn't mean that, if I'd missed the line by the same amount, it wouldn't have made that much difference. But the more downhill it is, the closer to that line you've got to be, getting to the extent that if you miss it by even the tiniest amount, then you're probably going to miss the putt if you're using a guide. For that reason, that's why downhill putts are harder. Nothing too complicated this one. I'm just going to draw it around the trees and then probably I've come off the power a little bit. The idea there is to leave myself a fairly full pitch into the green rather than kind of 100, 120 yards, which is a horrible distance because the ball flies so flat it's really difficult to control. And also notice I went kind of to the middle because it's going to kick off to the left. It's quite easy for it to bounce off left into the rough or even the bunker if you get your line wrong. So I've left myself about the distance I wanted. I'm going to play a pitch shot, probably a fairly full sand wedge I would have thought. A pitch shot, I think as I've said before, doesn't get as affected by the wind, certainly left to right, like a crosswind, or right to left. But it is still affected quite strongly by whether the wind's front to back or if it's a tailwind. So you've got to kind of know your angles and know what you're going to do. So this is probably going to be fairly close. I've played a full sand wedge. Again, it's a little bit short, so I'm a bit short of points there. But again, given the choice of moving up to an approach wedge, an AW, and playing a full sandwich, I would normally go with a full sandwich because you get that one extra point. Having said that, you get 2 extra points for getting a nice approach, so it's it's a bit of a balance. I was kind of hoping I'd get the nice approach there plus the full shot, but I didn't. The points you'll kind of get your head round, but it becomes more and more important as you're getting into closer and closer tour games. So any time where you can pick up an extra point from a full putt or a chip shot or getting it within the 5.4 yards, if it's at all possible, then you should always go for it. This one, again, with that wind, fairly straightforward. I can just make it with a sky shot if I did have a right to left wind. But this is, in fact, sorry, I did go with the sky shot. My memory's not the best there. So as you'll see, it was just a case of adjusting for the left to right wind. I could have gone a bit further over to the left. I'm not the best with the sky shot yet, but I'd done a bit of practice and I knew that I was going to get on the green and get fairly close. There's a bit of a dish where the pin is. There's only 5 pin positions on this hole and they're all roughly around the same area, which is in a kind of a dish in the middle of the green. If you get the ball within that, you get a fairly easy putt. If you get outside that, it can sometimes be a bit tricky, but everywhere you're putting from, it'll pretty much always be a downhill putt because the pin's kind of the lowest point of the green. But not too tricky a putt, and that one should get tucked away. Tour this week is this course. We've got Sequoia out from the 6th tee, Sands from the 5th tee, which I actually had last week in Master Pro B, and Rolling Hills from the 6th tee. So some interesting courses there. I've never played certainly 2 of those 3. I've never uploaded any videos of those courses, so I'm going to try and get as many of them up as possible, and then there's a reference point for people to watch, and it gives you an idea of the sort of shots you can be playing. So this is a par 3. You'll notice the green sloping heavily front to back, so the ball's going to roll away from us. It's also going to roll quite heavily right to left, which you'll kind of get from experience. I tend to err on the side of trying to hit this a bit past the pin because it's going to leave you an uphill putt. You can get some even kind of 6-7 yards away if you're short of the pin. You can get some really tricky putts, but that was roughly what I wanted to do. Obviously, ideally put it in the hole, but that's a rarity. So as you can see, an uphill putt, the same distance away from the other side. It still wouldn't have been too tricky, but any further away than that, you get quite a steep gradient away from you. And what I was talking about before, catching it right on the line becomes really important, whereas there's a lot more margin for error when you're playing it uphill. So no problems there. I am obviously aiming for a perfect round, but just to spoil the suspense, I do make one mistake. I'll be honest, I can't quite remember where it is. It's probably on the 7th. 7th is, unless I get a wind I'm particularly familiar with, I tend to, if I'm going to make a mistake, that's where it'll be made. And in 5 attempts, I got close, but never quite got the perfect round, which, as I've said before, if you're playing in Master Pro A, you need to be getting probably 2 out of the 4 rounds perfect. Ideally, the last 2, which are more heavily weighted for points. Okay, so this one, very similar to the other par 5, I'm playing a draw around the trees. This green is heavily sloped back to front, so your ball will stop very sharply, and you need to take that into account when you're making your approach shot. I'm close enough for a flop shot here. So because the ball's only going to be in the air for a short period of time, so it's a short distance, there's not a huge amount of distance to adjust for the wind behind. The further it's going, the more the wind's going to affect it. But the flop shot is quite lofted, so obviously it's in the air quite a while, and it's going to be affected by the wind. So you'll see it's maybe could have gone a little bit softer there, but you'll notice the ball rolled off to the left and stopped very sharply. So for that reason, it's again going a little bit too far past is way worse than being a little bit short on these holes with the heavy slope back to front. You don't want to leave yourself a downhill putt if you can avoid it at all. Okay, so again, can't remember quite correctly, but I believe this is probably where I'm going to make my mistake. Let's see. It might have been on the last, but I don't think so. So the pin's in a tricky-ish place. So the only thing to do here is to draw. It's just about getting the distance right, so it's going to bounce on that fairway in front of the green, but it is sloping very heavily up to the green. So anything slightly short, and it'll just kick off and stop in the rough, which again, from memory. I'll probably prove completely wrong in a moment, but I think that's what I did here. So my line looks about right there. Because with the wind in my face, it's going to come over to the left. If you can imagine the flight of the ball, it's being pushed back towards you, and with the shape of the shot, that'll mean it's going to finish a little bit more left than it normally would have done. So I've gone almost 100%. I think I probably should have just played a max shot here, but even then, I think I probably should have moved up to a 1 wood. The problem with that though is a 1 wood, again, it's less lofted and it becomes more difficult again to try and judge where the ball's going to pitch. So, that looks like that's my mistake. So I'm going after it with a chip. I can exclusively reveal now that's not going to go in. It'll probably go quite close. It's not too tricky a shot. I've put this in from time to time. But with that, you see the L7 on the power button at the bottom right. That's telling us it's going to move quite sharply over to the left. When I hit it, there's a bit of a gradient on the hill. In the rough there, sorry. So the ball's going to shoot off to the left. So you'll notice I'm going way past the pin. That's because I've selected a rough shot. Again, if you've watched my other videos, you'll have seen me do this before. I hit it roughly kind of 40% harder than the marker would indicate because I'm playing a chip shot out of the rough. And you'll find that it's not going to, as you might think, fly right off the back there. But because it's coming out the rough, it's going to finish roughly pin high. Let's see. Yeah, it's gone a little bit past, but that's distance-wise just about right, just not quite the line. So there's my mistake. So you probably guessed now I should do okay on the next 2 holes. Now we'll just watch them through. The 8th actually is a lot more tricky than it used to be, as you'll find out in a moment. There's a big tree in the way that has recently appeared. Amazing how quick these trees grow. And it's, well, there's certain shots you can play to get past it. We'll see where the pin is before I can try and remember what shot I played here. So yeah, you can see, so the pin's at the front. I think I probably would have played a high fade. It's not going to go very high, so it's quite underpowered. So you'll notice I pulled that right back. A full 9 iron was going to go about 210, 220 yards. The shorter you leave it, the only consideration here is, well, obviously you've got the bunkers. I'm aiming for the gap between the 2 bunkers just in front of the pin that you can see here. It's never going to stop in time because it's going to be travelling so low. But by hitting that bit of fairway, it's going to take a lot of the pace off it. So it's going to go quite a way past the pin, but not too bad. It's certainly holeable, but no chance of really getting that close for a nice approach. When I say no chance, it can happen if I got it absolutely bang on, but then you've got to flirt with the bunker a bit more, and you're taking that risk. So when you're on for a decent round, sometimes just playing it a little bit safer. Either way, even if I put it dead, it's still a birdie. This is going to count for a birdie as well if it goes in. So it's just a case of deciding what's best in that current situation. So again, we're flying through these. So we're on to the last hole, which is a par 5. Until the sky shot arrived, this was always a fade, although certainties actually you could do it with a draw, but it's much more tricky. So a fade around the tree, bounce in front of the green and bounce onto the green. However, now I can sky shot it. It becomes a lot more possible. With a right to left wind, a strong right to left wind, it was very, very tricky to hold the green, if not impossible, in certain winds. But I know with a sky shot, hitting it round about there, it's going to finish, it's going to be quite a way past the pin. It's very tricky to stop. Where the pin is there, the green slopes away from you and the ball will always kick forward a bit. So I've left a long putt, which is a tricky one. There's a big right to left break on it. You'll play this putt a lot. If you can make the green at this hole from any tee, you'll find that you get this putt quite a lot. So for that reason, I think I'll line it up quite well. I've played this putt 1,000 times before. The consideration is just, am I going to hit it on the line? I'm quite happy that it's not hugely downhill. So again, it gives me a little bit, if I don't get it exactly bang on, there's still a chance it'll go in. So literally, I'm not going to do anything other than line it up exactly how it looks it should go in the hole, and try and hit it on the line. Nothing more complicated than that. So I've caught that pretty much bang on. You know most of the time as soon as you hit it whether it's going in or not. Certainly on these greens with a very even break. Sometimes you get some surprises when it's breaking one way then the other, and you haven't got the line up quite right. But for putts like that, if you've not hit it right on the line, you hold your breath a bit. If you get it bang on the line, it's going in. So that's round one. 15 under, not the best, not the worst. It'll finish probably ranked top 5 in that round, I would have thought, thereabouts. But there will be a few guys will do better. 16 under would be perfect. A lot of the time you'll see people do even better than that, getting a hole-in-one or an albatross chip in, something like that. I shall stop this now and we'll move on to the second round, which will be Sequoia out from the 6th tee. Thanks for watching this one. Again, if you want to subscribe, like, share, very much appreciated. I'll see you next time.